There is a lot of controversy around whether or not Dandy from Dandy's World is evil. So today we're doing a deep dive to get our own answer to that very question. Game Theory just recently uploaded a video on that exact topic, so let's react and see what we think. Alright everyone, I for one am super excited to get to the bottom of what is behind Dandy. Personally, I think that they're not evil and they were kind of just forced to do everything regarding the Twisteds and stuff, so hopefully the Game Theory video supports that. If not, that kind of sucks and Dandy kind of sucks. So, without further ado, let's see.
Roblox is at it again. Move over,
yes,
doors.
Sir.
There's a new horror game in town that's taking the internet and our subreddit by storm.
Dandy's
and its name
World.
is Dandy's World. But don't
Woo.
trust that smile for a minute, friends, because behind it is a sad and broken character who.
Okay, for a second I thought we were going to like be anti-Dandy here, but sad broken character, that doesn't sound too bad.
The lives of his friends, his creators, and the very studio we're exploring.
Okay.
Hello, Internet. Welcome
Hello.
to Game Theory, the show that just can't get enough black goo. Think about it. Bendy, Doors, Welcome Home, Bob Mod, FNAF. All of them have a black, goopy thing that leads to one thing.
I guess that's a good point. Does FNAF have black goop? I guess I never really thought about it. I guess if anything, it's like oil, but I wouldn't call it black goop. Definitely not like the Ichor or Ichor. Can someone comment down below and tell me how to spell that? Maybe I'll find out in this video, but I feel like I've been saying it wrong.
Get into my veins at this point.
Ew.
But alas, HR won't let me do
I don't want that in my veins.
It's been a while since my last black goopy hit when I saw our subreddit blowing up.
Lots of people want Dandy's World theories.
Also had its own black goo. I was very excited to gobble up whatever sticky dark lore this thing had to offer.
I don't want to gobble up any of that.
It's a multiplayer survival horror game on Roblox. The game itself takes place in an abandoned educational center and museum called the Garden View Center.
Interesting. I feel like I'm actually going to learn so much lore in this that I didn't actually already know. I didn't realize Dandy's World was abandoned. I guess that's why wouldn't it be, I guess? But the lobby just looks so fun and everything, unlike like Poppy Playtime, for example, that looks abandoned.
Creatures known as toons. Our job is to hop into the elevator with some friends and complete various tasks while collecting items that can be traded into the lead character Dandy to unlock even more toons to play as. But as you might expect, we're not the only things creeping around these empty halls.
Of course not.
The more we start to get a sense of what happened to this place once filled with the sounds of children's laughter and joy. What happened to this beloved place to shutter its doors and why it has suddenly come back to life with evil versions of the toons known as Twisted that are trying desperately to stop us, dripping with that delightful black goo.
So far, so good. I feel like I've known all of this up until this point, so I'm excited to get into the more juicy bits. Give it to me, Game Theory.
There it is.
Ew, why does he want to eat it so bad?
Step into the elevator, loyal theorists, because we're going to get to the bottom of what's really going on in Dandy's World.
Let's do it.
And its smiling rainbow flower mascots.
Yeah.
The history of the Garden View Center actually starts with this note that you can find if you don't die to the various Twisteds chasing you around the various floors.
Interesting. I haven't actually gotten this note, so no, most of the businesses have been set up from the funds generated either from personal savings or from external finance sources. Okay.
It's Twisteds chasing you around the various floors.
1984.
It's an application for a business loan dated 1984. From this, we can see that the Garden View Center is the brainchild of two young visionaries, Henry Stein and Joey Drew. Wait, no, I meant Delilah Keene and Arthur Walton. Although the connections between
the way I
these
thought
two
it was
and Bendy
serious.
definitely keep going. Thanks to a note sketched out by Arthur, we can tell that he was the one who originally designed the look of the toons. As for Delilah, she was a bit more sus. After seeing the sketch of the lead character Dandy, she
What
writes
you doing,
back to Arthur
Delilah?
saying,
What about the others? You said he had friends. Yes? I'll need them. Respond ASAP. By the way, out of coffee. Get more. Also ASAP.
If she's anything like me without my morning coffee, things are about to get real bad.
Yeah, Delilah just seems relatable, I'm gonna be honest.
Clearly ominous language, Arthur doesn't seem fazed, saying,
You've never failed me before, Delilah.
Then, in a recent update, the developers added these portraits of Garden View's two founders. Arthur is dressed to the nines. I tip my hat to you, sir. And Delilah
nice rainbow.
is covered in black
Ooh.
goo. See, Arthur,
I don't
this
like
is
the
how
look
it
of
starts,
Delilah.
and then you
She's
decide to leave and your
kind of
business partner
Inky.
creates an inky dimension inside their apartment, which is meant to house an inky version of you that they can torture for all eternity. It's a tale as old as time. Although this black goo is a little different to the living ink from Bendy. It's called Ichor. And
Ichor, so I have been saying it wrong this entire time. Good to know.
There's black goo all over the place during the game, but when you get caught by a Twisted, your toon explodes into the stuff. It's almost like the Roblox PG safe version of blood, and the name certainly lends itself to that line of thinking. Ichor isn't just a made-up word. It comes from what is very quickly becoming my favorite thing to talk about on this channel. Say it with me now. Greek mythology. I don't know why there's so much of this in
interesting.
horror these days.
Didn't know that.
For another day. So make sure you ink splat that subscribe button like your life depends on it, because it just might. Anyway, the ancient Greeks believed that instead of having blood coursing through their veins, the gods had a mysterious substance known as Ichor. They also believed that if a normal human were to come into contact with Ichor, they would die instantly. So that's it.
I don't want to come into contact with Ichor. I certainly don't want to eat it like this guy.
Because Ichor is also this game's form of currency. We collect more and more of this stuff as we descend further into the levels of the Garden View Center.
Or we just purchase it in Robux because collecting it takes forever.
Almost as if Ichor isn't just the blood that's coursing through them, but it's actually what is used to make the toons. And given the notes and photos we found from earlier, while Arthur was the one who originally designed the toons, it was Delilah who brought them to life using the Ichor.
Delilah really just be looking suspicious. I don't know. She's got a vibe about her.
As you play and encounter more of the Twisted Toons, you unlock research that gives you more lore about each character. Several of the research entries mention that it's the Ichor, and more specifically being overcome by Ichor, that turns these happy-go-lucky toons into the twisted monsters they are now. That also explains why all of the Twisteds can be seen with Ichor pouring out of every orifice.
That makes sense.
They are literally so full of the stuff, it's leaking out of them. So
I don't like that, but that makes sense.
Volatile, why make toons to begin with? As I mentioned, Arthur and Delilah get their loan in 1984, and from there, they set up the Garden View Center as a children's educational center and museum. What it was a museum of back in 1984 is unclear exactly. But based on 2 Polaroid photos dated 1988, what is clear is that these characters were originally designed as a selling point for the center. Unlike other attractions, the Garden View Center didn't have just people in mascot costumes or cuddly animatronics.
Yeah, they literally made toons.
Freezing versions of the toons that kids could come and meet. We all know how well that goes.
Yeah.
Although it appears as time went on, these characters became popular beyond just the center. Despite this place looking abandoned for years, there are a bunch of posters still lining the walls that give us some interesting details.
It is interesting to me how, like, in FNAF or whatever, Bendy, all these different things, even Poppy Playtime, the characters themselves start off as nice and then turn evil, but it's different in Dandy's world, which I do appreciate, because the characters, the original characters, are still nice because we play as those toons, but there's just twisted versions of them, I think. Something like that.
And we get back to what's lining the walls of the Garden View Center. In every corner of the Garden View Center, there are CRTs playing a TV show full of lovable toons who might look a little familiar.
I've never sat down to watch those TVs, but they are everywhere.
They originally aired, hung up on the many walls of the building. This show is Dandy's World, and the earliest date we see for the show is for the episode Snowy Adventure, which aired on Christmas 1990. 2 years after the earliest date we know these toons to have existed. The Garden View characters became so popular that they eventually created a show. The show wasn't just about the many adventures of Garden View, though. If you take a look around the place, you can actually find storyboards for the show. If you don't know,
I haven't noticed anything like that at all. Is that actually a thing? I mean, I'm assuming so, because he didn't just get this out of nowhere, but that's really cool. I'm gonna have to keep a bigger eye out when I'm playing Dandy's World from here on out.
Storyboards are essentially what TV, movies, and even gaming studios will use to plan out a sequence of events and the shots that they need to capture or draw for any given project. Meaning that this show was actively being worked on here at the Garden View Center. This wasn't just a place where kids could come to learn and play. It was also a TV studio.
It's always a TV studio, man.
I be reminded of a certain other TV studio / theme park from the real world that was popular around the same time. A studio that in itself was also famous for its use of a slimy substance.
Nickelodeon.
If you're not old enough to know what I'm talking about, I
didn't even think about that. Does Nickelodeon like still exist? I know they like had some issues, but I hope you guys are old enough to know what Nickelodeon is. If not, Oh man, I feel old.
I'm barely old enough to remember. But when
Really?
you work for TV studios like Fox and Disney, you get very familiar with the history of competing studios. Nickelodeon Studios was part of the wider Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. Much like the Garden View Center, it was both a place for kids and a working studio. Classic Nick shows like Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, and the early seasons of all that were all filmed at Nickelodeon Studios. But the fun part was, people that were coming for the theme park side to keep their kids entertained could also sign up to come and see their favorite shows get made. If you were lucky enough, you had the chance of being in the audience to watch these shows being made live.
1990 is crazy.
For a live audience in Nickelodeon Studios at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida.
And of course, we can't forget about the slime. Nickelodeon and their patented green slime go together like peanut butter and jam. Sorry, jelly. No, if Ichor is supposed to be Garden View's version of slime, that would make Double Dare a whole lot more morbid. This idea of live studio filming is exactly what we're seeing happening in the Garden View Center. While the clips for the TV show are definitely cartoons, the characters themselves are toons, and they talk as if these events were real events that really happened. For example, one of the episodes of the Dandy's World TV show was called Winning Big, and it features a toon named Scraps on a game show, well, Winning Big, with the show being hosted by another toon, V. But despite this presumably happening on a fictional TV show, the actual V and Scraps have memories of this event. In one of the dialogues that can happen among the characters between levels, V and Scraps say this.
Hey V, you're not mad at me for winning all of your game show prizes, right, V? I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Oh, interesting. But if V was a game show host, which they do make sense, they kind of look like a game show host, why would they be mad at someone taking the prizes unless they didn't want a winner? I don't know, but that's cool. I wish there was like a set or like a level or something that was basically like one of the sets that would have had like a stage and chairs and stuff for the live audience. That'd be cool.
Another set of dialogue, V claims Scraps' victory on the game show was down to pure luck. It doesn't really make much sense that V would be so salty about what happened on a TV show about her. Instead, it's more likely that she is mad because it really happened. These toons are more than just live action characters for the kids to meet. They were the performers that starred in the show. And those kids who were touring the center would have the chance to watch the show being recorded live. And I use the word would have very specifically. The show was a massive success. We know that by 1990, Dandy's World was on the air and ran for over a decade.
Right.
But as with all indie
so
horror
what
histories,
happened,
the winning
though?
streak couldn't last forever. The final episode of the show was planned for July 21st, 2002.
Okay.
But from what we can tell, it never actually made it to air because according to the city newspaper, on June 24th, 2002, the Garden View Center closed its doors. The last aired episode we know about was from 2001, which again lines up with what we saw from the Nickelodeon studios. The studio began to lay off staff that same year, 2001, and the game shows being produced there had production halted, while Nickelodeon Animation continued in other locations, which is another reason why I feel like Dandy's World was being produced as a live-action production.
It does make sense that Dandy's World is based off of Nickelodeon, plus a lot of the trendy horror games that have come out the past few years. I like the mix, you know, everything is inspired by everything these days, but this is a good mix of inspiration and a little bit uniqueness.
If there was just another animated cartoon, we'd likely see remnants of the show still going on, but as it stands, the show stopped at the same time the studio did. However, compared to Nick Studios' closure being due to the heavy shift in animation and the increase in shows needing to be filmed in Los Angeles, Garden View's closure was a little more mysterious. According to that same newspaper, it was shut down due to a, quote, malfunction incident, which, as we all know, is indie horror corporate speak for our creation turned on us and tried to kill everyone.
Yeah, that's where Dandy comes in.
Arthur was asked to comment and chose to remain silent, especially when behind the scenes he makes it abundantly clear that he knew exactly what was going on. He writes in a letter to his longtime business partner Delilah,
Delilah, we need to talk. I know you've kept reassuring me that what had happened wasn't due to anything you had done. You had to have known this could happen to him. If you did, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell
Is he talking
me?
about what happened to
Something like
Dandy?
this doesn't just happen.
That him that Arthur is referring to, the one that something happened to, the one that malfunctioned,
Yup.
I believe, is none other than the star of the show, our
Dandy.
titular flower, Dandy. Let me explain. Ever since Garden View Center closed down, several of the other toons have talked about how uneasy they feel around him. And we don't have to take
Which
their
makes
word for it.
sense.
We can see it for ourselves in-game. In between levels, Dandy pops up in the elevator to sell you power-ups to make your run
Right.
easier. But if you instead choose to not buy from him, Dandy starts to get more and more frustrated. If you
Oh.
continue to ignore him, things become less fine and dandy, and he'll have a full-blown meltdown.
Interesting.
He will turn into his twisted form, and you'd better watch out because he'll soon spawn on an upcoming level to hunt you down. Dandy is a loose
Oh.
cannon, ready to snap at
See,
any moment if he
The
doesn't
highest level I've made it to, I think, is 10. So I didn't even know that part yet. So good to know.
get his way. Based on my years of indie horror experience, my hunch is that
So
this
Dandy
is what
is
happened
a
on the
little
day of the
evil at the
malfunction.
very
Dandy
least.
was the first creation, Arthur's main guy. But unlike the others, we're being shown that he can transform into a Twisted rather than just being a Twisted, which lines up with the idea that this mascot malfunctioned, transforming into a Twisted and created an incident that got the entire place shut down. And that hunch proved to be correct when I found his research data. It says, quote, the star of the show, the one who runs the Ichor operation, it's all his fault. Everything we're experiencing, the abandoned studio taken over by monsters, the studio shutting down leading to this point, it's all Dandy's fault.
So
However,
is
the
it,
reason
though?
for Dandy's snap isn't quite as simple as you might think. With Dandy being the primary mascot in a mascot horror game, it would be easy to just assume he's purely evil. Maybe
Right.
the fame got to him. Maybe he cracked
That's what we're
under the
wondering.
pressure, but eventually was overcome by the power of the Ichor and became pure evil. But that isn't the case. There's a little bit of audio storytelling that you might have missed while playing through the game yourself. When
Oh.
Twisted Dandy chases you in-game, a song plays that you've no doubt heard before, but probably never knew the name of.
Yeah. I've heard this song plenty.
This song is called Claire de Lune, and it's based off an 1869 poem by Paul Verlaine. A poem
Okay.
about someone who looks happy on the outside, but deep down is sad. Quote, playing the lute
Oh.
and dancing and all, but sad beneath their fantasy disguises.
So it's specifically saying that Dandy is a sad boy and we need to help him.
This song is telling us what Dandy and also his friends are. They are these picture-perfect, happy, smiling toons performing for the joy of others, but deep down, they're sad. And they're sad because of what we saw during the Christmas update last year. According to another set of letters, after Christmas had passed, some of the Christmas-themed toons were doing the whole Blair Witch thing and hiding in the corner. Delilah's response was basically, Christmas is over, just throw them into storage till next year. Even though the toons are alive,
Yeah,
they
the
were
toons are
being
literally
abused by
alive. You
their
can't just do
handlers
that.
and treated like props. Only good for the thing they were made for and nothing
Do the toons not have to like eat or anything? Like even so, don't just throw them in a room.
else. Behind their smiles
You
were
can't blame 'em
sad,
for turning
lonely
evil in that
creatures.
case,
Dandy's
even though
dialogue
it's
when he
Dandy's
thinks you're
fault, but
ignoring him at the
still.
shop matches this.
We're friends here, right? Friend? What is happening?
He's confused, he's scared, he is terrified that he too has lived past his usefulness. That if he is no longer the star, that he and his friends face the same fate as those Christmas toons. And my guess is, that's exactly what happened on that fateful day in 2001.
I mean,
Dandy
that's
saw how his friends
reasonable.
were being treated. He got scared. He didn't want to be ignored, to be forgotten, to no longer be the star. And as a result, he became overcome by the Ichor and ultimately caused all the toons to be locked away forever. A self
So, I mean, obviously Dandy made that decision and it's his fault, but it's really on the creators for being neglectful. They never should have done that to the other toons.
fulfilling prophecy. That's why, as his research report says, he has restarted the Ichor project. It's not because he's trying to build an army of evil toons to take over the world or to enact his revenge on those who wronged him. He's trying to atone for his sins.
Aw.
He and his friends lost everything, and it's all his fault. Now he's trying to bring the show back to life. He specifically keeps asking you to find and collect and give him
True.
the VHS tapes of the show, and he's using the Ichor to create more toons. Maybe, just maybe, if all the toons come back, so too to all the fans, the kids, the show, and Dandy can once again be the star he was literally born to be. But he is not the original creator. He's not Delilah. He doesn't know how to use the Ichor properly. He's using too much, and so all of his toon friends are ending up as twisted monsters. But
He's
hey,
doing
that's
his
just
best.
a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Wow, I'm definitely glad I watched this and I have a better understanding of the game now. If there's anything that game theory missed, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And this just makes me more excited to play the game, find secrets and more lore, and see what there is to see.